So with that, E3 has come and gone once again, and what a very, very disappointing year. I have to be perfectly honest, guys, I really did not like this year's E3. This was probably one of the worst that I can remember in recent memory. I wasn't that excited going into it, to be perfectly honest, because Sony wasn't there. We knew that next generation consoles were just around the corner. So I really wasn't all that excited for this year, but I wanted to be optimistic. I wanted to hope that there would be some big reveals, and this year really let me down. It was just more of updates of games that we already knew were coming. There weren't really that many big reveals, and even if there were, the majority of them were already leaked in the month leading up to it, so there was really no room for surprise for a lot of these games. I don't even know where to start for this, to be honest. Like, this is going to be a completely unscripted video because I really cannot be asked to script something for this year's E3 because, like I say, I just really did not enjoy it. I only managed to watch two of the conferences live, which were the Microsoft and the Ubisoft press conferences. With EA's, I was at work for it. Bethesda's and Square Enix's were just way too early in the morning for me to want to watch them. And then with Nintendo, again, I was at work. So even with this year, I just didn't get the chance to watch a lot of conferences, but I have gone back and rewatched them all. So I'll just give my thoughts on every conference based on time of showing, which was the earliest, and then I'll just give my score and move on. What can we really say about EA's at this point? EA's conferences every single year just are awful. They're always awful. The only highlight of the entire conference was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order by Respawn. I know everybody will make the meme about, oh, what about FIFA 20, Dan? Well, it's FIFA. You know, it's always shit, so I really don't care at this point. I will still buy it, but it was still shit this year. But Star Wars Jedi was the only thing that really excited me. I am looking forward to that game, but for me, one game does not save an entire conference. It was awful from start to end. I really didn't enjoy it. There was no surprises there that really captivated me. I'd probably give it somewhere in the region of a 2 to a 3 out of 10. Really didn't like it. Let's move on. Next on after that, we have the Microsoft press conference, which was the first one that I watched live. Very underwhelmed by this. It was just a lot of updates for games that we already knew about. The highlights would probably be Ori. I really am looking forward to that game. I think we did actually get a release date. I think it's sometime in early 2020. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I really liked what they showed of that, the small trailer that they had for it. I am definitely interested in potentially getting that game for PC. We also had Cyberpunk 2077, again very good, but given that it's not a first-party game, you kind of have to take a little bit off of that for me. I will say, though, the reveal of Keanu Reeves in the game was probably, weirdly enough, the highlight of E3 for me personally. You know E3 sucks when the highlight is that a famous actor is in your game. That is the definition of how low this year was for big reveals. I mean, it was cool to have him on stage, and I love Keanu Reeves. He's just a lovely, lovely person. But yeah, that wasn't enough to save the entire conference for me. I wouldn't say it was particularly bad, but it was very run-of-the-mill average, and it was disappointing, especially when you compare it to how amazing last year's conference was. We did also see a little bit of the next Xbox. We found out that the name was Scarlet, which I'm pretty sure was already leaked. It's been confirmed for Holiday 2020, so Sony will probably make the same move with their next-gen system. They tried to make such a big deal out of the Scarlet, but the thing was that we already kind of knew it would have the specs that they announced. They made it sound like this massive thing, but we already kind of assumed that because PlayStation had already released their projected specs for the next gen system from them, so we knew Microsoft's would be the same. The only real standout to me was that they announced that they would be able to get games to play at 120 frames per second, which is cool, except you would probably need a ridiculously stupid monitor to be able to see that, so it's kind of a double-edged sword in that regard. It was cool to get updates on it, but it didn't particularly blow me away. The more mind-blowing stuff will probably come at next year's conference, where we probably get like a proper full reveal of the next-gen system. So if I had to give it a score, I'd probably say a 5 out of 10 for me. It wasn't terrible, nowhere near as bad as EA's, definitely not the worst conference we had, but very disappointing in comparison to what Microsoft showed off last year. Then after that, we had Bethesda's conference. I was kind of predicting this one was going to be an entire meme fest because Bethesda has had a really shitty last year. Of course, they had the release of Fallout 76, which was panned by pretty much everyone. Todd Howard became an absolute meme because of it, and This year, they were, again, they weren't the worst conference. They at least had some good parts about it. Doom Eternal looks really good. I really enjoyed the first Doom, so I'm really looking forward to this one. What they showed of that was really cool, so I'll definitely be picking that up on release, because I really love the Doom franchise, and Doom 2016 was just such a blast to play. One of the most fun games to play this generation. It was announced as well that Fallout 76 is getting a Battle Royale mode, so yay for that. It kind of feels like it's come 12 months too late, because the Battle Royale genre really has started to die out. At this point, I'm really seeing nobody talk about it, so yeah, I'm not really all excited for this, and I don't own Fallout 76 anyway, because I will never buy that game because of how shitty it is. So that really didn't pique my interest. There were other things that did surprise me though, that I did enjoy about the conference. We found out that Arcane, the developers of Dishonored, are actually working on a new game called Deathloop. It's a first-person game where it's, I think, about two rival assassins. Sounds pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, we also had Ghostwire Tokyo is actually the new game from Tango Gameworks, who of course developed The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2. So again, looking forward to that. I really enjoy The Evil Within 2, probably one of the most underrated games of this generation. So those were two announcements that I did really like. Like I say, overall, Bethesda's conference, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I really went into it thinking it was going to be terrible. But there were a few things that did intrigue me coming out of it. But again, it's just Bethesda, They've just never been able to live up to that first E3 press conference where they absolutely knocked it out of the park, and everyone since then has just failed to live up to it. Again, it wasn't terrible. I would probably put it slightly above Microsoft's, only because there was just a few more cool announcements from there. So I would overall give Bethesda's conference probably 6 out of 10 if I had to give it a ranking. Then we had Ubisoft's press conference, which was the second and last one that I watched live. Ubisoft's was just not very good either. I'd probably put it on the same level as EA's. I really wasn't a fan of this entire conference. The only thing I liked about it was Watch Dogs Legion, and it would have been slightly cool had it not been leaked the week before, and of course I already made a video about it, and everybody already knew this game was going to be at the event, but they decided to show it off as the very first thing. What we saw of it from gameplay-wise, I really enjoyed, definitely looking forward to it, but the rest of the conference after that was absolutely terrible. They showed off all of these games that I just, to be quite honest, do not care about. They showed us Sam Fisher in this other fucking game, like this cartoon-looking game, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, we're never getting a new Splinter Cell game, are we? Like, Splinter Cell is just dead in the water at this point. There was nothing else after Watch Dogs Legion that made me surprised. I'm already getting kind of bored talking about it right now. I give it a 3 out of 10, just like EA's. Terrible apart from one standout game. Let's just move on. Then up after that, we had Square Enix's press conference. Square Enix was a weird one for me. There were things that I really liked about it. We got the release date announcement for the Final Fantasy VII remake, and we saw a bit more of that, which was, again, really cool. It's just nice that we're getting a lot more information about that game, because Sony showed it off in, I think it was E3 2015, and then we heard nothing about it for years, and then it was finally re-revealed last year, and I'm just happy that we're getting a lot more news about it, just so it gives us the idea that they actually are moving forward with this game, and the fact that it's releasing in March is very surprising. I thought it would be later than that, but the fact that it must be making that much progress with the game is very good to see, and I did really like what they showed off. I've never actually played Final Fantasy VII, so I'm really excited to play this one because I've heard it's one of the best games of all time, so very intrigued to play. We also got the reveal of the Avengers game that Crystal Dynamics have been working on. I did like it for the most part, but I was disappointed that we didn't get gameplay. I would have liked to have seen that. There were a few snippets in the trailer where it did seem like gameplay-ish, but we never got like full-blown gameplay demo. I've seen a few people complain about the graphics as well. People saying, oh, it doesn't look like the Avengers from the films. I think those people clearly need to understand that this is based off of the comics, not the films. And I think the character models are alright. Yeah, they're not the most detailed character faces, but I still thought they were good enough for the most part. Apparently, I read somewhere as well that Crystal Dynamics developers they're actually taking on board this criticism, and they may actually, enhance the graphics in the game, especially with the character models. So we'll see. The game obviously isn't coming out till next year, so there's always a lot of time for them to listen to fan feedback and change things. But I think the hate that it's getting online is a bit over pathetic, to be honest with you. People need to, switch their heads into gear and actually be reasonable people and not be crybabies because they don't look exactly like the Avengers in the MCU. The rest of it I really didn't care about, to be perfectly honest. They were the only two things that really stood out to me. The rest of them weren't necessarily terrible, but they didn't really intrigue me all that much, other than the Avengers game and Final Fantasy VII Remake. So with Square Enix's, I'd probably give it probably the same as Microsoft. I'd give it a 5 out of 10. Wasn't amazing, but wasn't terrible either. Very, I'd say, run-of-the-mill. So I'd give it a 5 out of 10 in total. So yeah, that was pretty much my thoughts on E3 as a whole for me personally. If I had to rank the conferences altogether, I would probably say number 1, weirdly enough for me, would be Bethesda. Then 2 would be Square Enix. Then Microsoft. Then, oh god, Ubisoft or EA. I'd probably say Ubisoft, because at least it was so bad it was good, and then EA just because it was, you know, pure dog shit. But that is my ranking and my thoughts on each of the major conferences that I watched for E3 2019. Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree with me that this year was fairly disappointing. Do you think Sony should have just turned up to the event and just shown a few things? I personally feel like they should have done, because this year really suffered without them. Nobody really stepped up their game to make up for Sony's absence, especially Microsoft. I expected just more from them and for them to capitalize on Sony's absence, but they never did. So let me know your thoughts on this year's conferences down below. Thank you all very much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you all again for the next video. Goodbye.